Why can't I get back to where I was? Why can't I see? Oh,
Um,
okay. Look at the wrong thing. All right. We
Good.
are Het Gimel.
Yes.
The same is true concerning condition, and the same is true concerning a debt. If his creditor said to him, "Throw me my debt," and he threw it to him, and if it falls closer to the lender, the borrower gains. If closer to the borrower, um, he is obligated. If half and half, they both divide it. If she was standing on top of the roof and he threw it to her, and once she reaches the airspace of the room, she is divorced. If he was above and she below, and they threw it up to her, once it leaves the domain of the roof, even if it was erased or burnt, she is divorced. Beit Shammai says a man may divorce his wife with an old get. Beis Hillel says, however, prohibits this. What is an old get? Anytime he secludes himself with her after he wrote it for her. If he wrote the date on the get according to the reign of the kingdom which is unworthy, according to the kingdom of Media, according to the kingdom of Greece, according to the construction of the temple, or for the destruction of the temple, or if he was in the east and he wrote in the west, or in the west and he wrote in the east, she must leave both of them, and she needs to receive a get from each of them. She is entitled neither to a ketubah nor equal nor sustenance, nor worn out clothing from either. If she took from either, she must return it. Her child by either is a mamzer, neither of them may contaminate himself to her, and neither has the right to find her findings, her handiwork, or the revocation of her vows. If she was the daughter of a non-Kohen, she is disqualified from marrying a Kohen. If she was the daughter of a Levi, she is disqualified from the tithe. And if the daughter of a Kohen, she is disqualified from Truma. The heirs of both do not inherit a ketubah. If they die, the brother of each performs kalitza, but not yibum. If he changed his name or her name, the name of his town or the name of her town, she must leave both of them, and all these procedures apply to her. Okay.
Okay. Now, um, now just before we start this one, we are just going to remind you of a halacha from Yevamos, is that if a man has two wives and he dies childless, then you need to do yibum or chalitza to one wife and the other wife is free. Okay. Um, Another halacha is that it's a negative commandment that these widows are not allowed to remarry until they have had a chalitza, or until the co-wife has had a yibum. Okay, and what else do we need to know? No, that's it. Okay, let's go. Let's dive into the Mishnah. Kol ha'arayos. Oh yes, the fact that as in the very first Mishnah of Yevamos, we learned that if the surviving brother has an erva relationship to one of the co-wives, for example, his brother was married to his daughter. You know, he was married. In other words, he married his niece. Um, and then even though the co-wife is of no relation, since he is prohibited to his daughter, obviously he can't do yibum or chalitza with his daughter, and therefore the co-wife automatically goes free.
All right.
Okay, so kol ha'arayos shamru tarasein mutaras. So every erva relationship will just work with his daughter. Let's say the surviving brother's daughter. Tarasein mutaras. Halchu hatzaros v'ha'elu v'nisu. So now the co-wife went, or so we had exactly this situation happened. A brother died without children. There were two wives. One of them was an erva, was the daughter of the surviving brother. And therefore, the co-wife said, "Great, I'm going to go get married." She goes and gets married. Nimtza'u elu ailonis. And now it turns out that the surviving brother's daughter was infertile, was an ailonis. She doesn't ever show signs of sexual maturity. And now it turns out retroactively that it wasn't a proper marriage, because the being he if you want to marry an Ionis, you have to know that she's an Ionis and you're accepting like with knowledge. So it's retroactively a mekach taos on the part of the deceased brother. Therefore, she was never married. Therefore, this the co-wife really needed a yibum or a chalitza. So now um, says the Mishnah, well, now you've got a problem because you should have been married to this other brother, or you needed a chalitza. You entered into a marriage with that you were not allowed to enter into. And this Mishnah now is going according to Rabbi Akiva, who holds that any that any relationship with somebody that has a negative commandment in the Torah, it will produce a mamzer. And once she's in that situation, she has all these penalties that we mentioned in the previous Mishnayos, that she loses the kasuba, etc., etc., and she has to get a divorce from the new husband. Um, it seems pretty harsh, but at any rate, the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Akiva because the Chachamim and the majority view is that this is not an it's not an erva relationship. It's a stam love, stam negative commandment, just like a kohen to a divorcee. So he's not allowed to be married to her, but she still gets a kasuba. So in other words, yes, the second husband um would he have to divorce her even, or does she just need a chalitza and then he can continue to remain? I don't know actually what the halacha is, if she can now just get a chalitza from the chalitza that she needs and remain married to or just redo the kiddushin with the second husband. That's not clear to me. Okay. Mishna Zion, a very similar case to the previous one. Hakones is yavimto. So the brother comes and marries the Yavama. Okay. B'halchat tzarasa v'niseis la'acher. So now the co-wife is free and she goes and gets married to a second guy. And once again, the nimtza azos shehi aylonis. So now it turns out that the first wife is an aylonis, and therefore the yibum is invalid, because you can't do yibum for an aylonis. There's no points to it, um, which effectively means wait. No, I'm not even going to speculate on that direction. Forget about it. I'm going to just keep quiet. Um, but at any rate, the second wife now turns out again is in a situation where she needed a chalitza before she could remarry, and it's the same halacha as the previous, where Rabbi Akiva says that she has all these penalties applied to her, but the consensus opinion is that she does not. Okay. Kasav sofer get leish v'shovar leisha. So he has a situation where the man and woman are going to get divorced, and so they go to a sofer to write out the get. And while they're at the get, the woman says, "Okay, you might as well write out the receipt for when I receive my kasuba." So so they make a mistake. Ta'av nasan get leisha v'shovar leish. So he mixes them up, and he gives them the two shtaros, which I guess must have been signed. Somebody must have looked at them and said, "Okay, I'm going to sign them," but there was a mix-up, and it ended up that the get was in the woman's hand and the receipt was in the man's hand, and then they came in front. They came and said, "Okay." Here's your and the man says, "Here's your get," and she receives it, and he says, "Okay, here's the money for your kasuba," and she hands over the what she thinks is the receipt, but is actually the get. So now the divorce didn't actually happen. And the man looks and says, "Hey, I've got the get." But shovar, and the woman says, "Hey, I've got the shovar." Once again, she was not divorced. She went and got remarried when she was still a married woman, and therefore all of these penalties apply to her. She should have checked. However, Rabbi Eliezer comes and says, "Wait, there's a little wrinkle in this story over here." Because I have another suspicion about some foul play afoot over here. What is the foul play? He says, "Oh, imla alter yatsa." If it turns out that if they both open up the things and look at it and say, "Oh, whoa, look at this," we mixed it up. Say, "Ain't get fine." So chances are this will be an immediate thing, or it'll be something before she remarries. Right. So now, so in that case, wonderful. Let them. She's not divorced yet. Let them trade the documents back, and then she's divorced. Okay. However, im la'acha zman yatsa. In other words, la'acha zman meaning after she's already remarried. Harei a get. He says, "No, I'm going to say that this actually was a get, and I'm going to leave them married and say nothing happened. She was properly divorced." Lo kol hemenu harishon la'abed schuso shel hasheni. See, what you're doing over here is you're giving the power to the first husband to mess up the marriage of the second husband. Now, why is this? What's he what's he what's he concerned about? Is that there's a canunia, there's a little conspiracy afoot over here where the woman who remarried discovers she's not so happy with her second husband, and the first husband has charata about the fact that he divorced her, and they start meeting on the sly and say, listen, how about this? We can undo the marriage if we just I went to Mishna class, and I learned that um if we switch the documents and come and say, oh dear, then the marriage gets cancelled, then the divorce gets cancelled, and then I can come back to you. What they don't realize, of course, under Rabbi Eliezer's thing, is that they wouldn't be allowed to get back together anyway, because now that she's been living with another man, she's prohibited to her husband anyway. So it's a bit of a stretch maybe for Rabbi Eliezer, but he's to say, okay, he suspects that they're Amaratzim, and they learned one halacha, but they didn't learn the other. Okay, that's Rabbi Eliezer's prerogative. He can make up whatever situation he wants and say, look, I don't want to give them the ability to mess up the second marriage, and therefore he says this does not invalidate the marriage. Okay, and final case, Kasav legaresh is ishto v'nimlach. So he wrote out the get, and he's made up his mind that he's divorcing her, and he's changed his mind now. Beis Shammai omrim psala min kahuna. No, the fact that he's written out the get has invalidated her from kahuna. She's now considered like uh, the taint of a divorcee, even though she's not actually a divorcee. Says even if the husband now dies before he could give over the get, there was a get written out in her name. We don't want any rumors going around that she's a divorcee and now she's married to a Kohen. Therefore, we don't allow her to marry a Kohen. Beis Hillel omrim af al pi shenasano la al tanai v'lo nasa tanai. So let's say he's a soldier going off to the army and says, "Look, if I don't come back from battle, then this is your get." She accepts it, right? And now the tanai isn't fulfilled. So he comes back from battle. But it turns out later on that he dies later. Now she wants to marry a Kohen. That's allowed according to Beis Hillel. Lop salamina Kohen. It's fine, even though she has literally a valid get in her hand, but the Tanai, just that the Tanai wasn't fulfilled. So for sure, Beis Hillel are going to say, look, if he didn't give it to her, of course there's no taint of a get. This one he actually gave to her, it's just that the Tanai wasn't fulfilled. Okay, let's go back to Hey Zion.
And Zion. A deaf mute gestures and is gestured to Sarah, however, says he moves his lips and is communicated with means of lip movements and transactions involving chattels. The young children's purchases are purchases, and their sales are sales and transactions involving chattels. These things were declared in the interest of peace. Cohen reads first, and then after him Leva, and then after him Yisrael in the interest of peace. An Arab is placed in the same house as before in the interest of peace. A cistern nears that the channel is filled first in the interest of peace. Traps for beasts, birds, and fish are covered by the laws of theft in the interest of peace. And Rabbi Yosef says it is actual theft. An article found by a deaf, mute, or mentally deranged person or a minor is covered by the laws of theft in the interest of peace. And Rabbi Yosef says it is an actual theft. If a poor man is cutting at the top of an olive tree to take what lies below him, he is considered theft in the interest of peace. Rabbi Yossi says it is an actual theft, and poor Gentiles are not prevented from collecting gleanings, forgotten sheaves, or the unpicked corners of fields in the interest of peace. A woman may lend to a friend who is suspect regarding produce of the Sabbatical year of the sister receive a handmill or an oven, but she may not window or grind with her. The wife of a scholar may lend a sift or a sieve to the wife of an unlearned person, and she may winnow, grind, and sift with her, but from when he pours the water, she will not help her because it is forbidden to assist transgressions. All of these were stated only in the interest of peace, and Gentiles may be encouraged during the sabbatical year, but not a Jew, and they may be greeted in the interest of peace.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Sort of base. Hey.
Okay. Okay, base hey. To what does she apply? Amen, amen, amen to the curse, amen to the oath, amen, amen with regard to this man, amen with regard to another man, amen that I have not committed adultery while betrothed, while married, while awaiting Yibum, or after having been married in Yibum. Amen that I have not been defiled, and that I have not been defiled. And if I have been defiled, these curses should come upon me. Rebbe says, amen, and that I have not been defiled, amen that I will never become defiled. All agreed that he cannot stipulate with her concerning the time before she was betrothed or the time after she was been betrothed, divorced. If she secluded herself that she had been divorced and then became defiled, and then he remarried her, he could not stipulate with her concerning this. This is the rule. Any incident in which even if she had cohabitated with would not be prohibited to him, he cannot stipulate with her concerning it. And he took her milk offering out of the Egyptian basket, put it in a service vessel, and placed it in her hand. The Kohen placed his hand beneath hers and waved it. So, ketubos.
Yeah.
Hey, if one eats in his father's house in Judea without witnesses, he cannot lodge a claim concerning her virginity against her because she secludes himself with her. Both the widow of a non-Kohen and the widow of a Kohen have a ketubah of 100 zuz. The court of the Kohanim would collect 400 zuz for a virgin, and the sages do not stop them. If one marries a woman and does not find any tokens of virginity, if she says, after you betrothed me, I was violated, and your misfortune caused it. And the other one says, not so. It happened before I betrothed you, and my acquisition was made in error. Reb Gamil and Reb Elia said she is believed. Reb Shua, however, says she is not believed. Rather, presume that she was a non-virgin before she was betrothed, and that she misled him until she approved her claim. If they saw a woman talking with someone in the street and they said to her, well, who's the nature of this man? She said, replied, he is so-and-so, he is a Kohen. Rabbi Gamil and Rabbi Elia say she is believed. Rabbi Yeshua says, however, she is not believed.
Hold on, no, so the coin case is
Next one.
is the next one, yeah.
All right. I went too far. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. Okay. We are on to Shabbos. All utensils may be taken out on the Sabbath. Fragments of them may also be taken with them, provided they can still be used to perform some sort of task. For example, fragments of a mixing bowl with which to cover the mouth of a cask, or fragments of a glass with which to cover the mouth of a flask. Rabbi Yehuda says, provided they can still perform in the nature of their former task, for example, fragments of a mixing bowl into which you pour porridge, or fragments of a glass into which you pour oil. A stone that is ground, that is a gourd shell, if water can be drawn from it without falling out, we may draw water with it, and if not, we may not draw water with it. A branch that is tied to a pitcher, we may draw water with it on Sabbath. A window shutter, Rico says, it is fastened and suspended. We may shut the window with it, and if not, we may not shut the window with it. But the sages say, in either case, we may shut the window with it.
Okay. Thoros.
Okay. We have Chet Aleph. If one lives together with an Amaretz in a courtyard and he forgot utensils in the courtyard, even sealed earthenware barrels or a sealed earthenware oven, they are tamei. Who would remove the oven tahor when it is sealed? Rabbi Yossi says even the oven is tamei until he makes a partition for it that is 10 handbreadths high. If one deposits utensils with an Amaretz, they become tamei with corpse truma, and they become tamei through the midrash. If he knows that he eats truma, they are tahor from corpse truma, but they are tamei through midrash. Rabbi Yossi says if he gave him a chest full of clothes, when the lid presses down on the clothes, they become tamei midrash. If the lid does not press down on the clothes, they become tamei for like tuma, even if the key is in the owner's hand. If one loses an object during the day and finds it the same day, he is tahor. During the day and found it during the night, during the night, and he during the day, and he found it the following day, he is tamei. This is the rule. Whenever the entire night is part of it passes over, it is tamei. If one spreads out clothes in the public domain, they are tahor. In the private domain, they are tamei. If he was watching them, they are tahor. If they fell and went to bring them, they are tamei. If his bad bucket fell into the well of an Amaretz and he went to bring something in which to raise it, he is tamei since it was left in the domain of the Amaretz for a short time. Okay.
Nachos.
Okay. We have Yud Aleph. Rabbi Yishmael says the Omer was bought on the Sabbath from 3 saw, and on a weekday from 5. But the comments say whether on the Sabbath or a weekday it came from 3. But Kananya says the administrator of Kohanim says on the Sabbath it was reaped by an individual with 1 sickle and in 1 basket, on a weekday by 3, and 3 baskets and 3 sickles. But the sages say whether on the Sabbath or on weekdays, it was done by 3 people with 3 baskets and 3 sickles. The mitzvah of the Omer is that it comes from the closest field. If that which is closest to Jerusalem did not ripen, we can bring it from any place. It once occurred that it came from Gagoth to Terafin and the Shitaya Flechem from the Ek Soka Valley. How did they do it? The court agents would go out on the eve of the festival and make it into bundles while it was attached to the ground so that it would be easier to reap. All the towns nearby would gather there so that it should be reaped with great ceremony. As soon as it became dark, it would say to them, has the sun set? They would say, yes, yes, the sickle. And they said, yes, the sickle. And they said, yes, this basket. They would say, yes, this basket. And they would say, yes. On the Sabbath, he would say to them, this Sabbath. They would say, yes, this Sabbath. And they would say, yes, shall I reap? And they would say to him, reap, shall I reap? And they would say to him, reap 3 times for each item. They would say to him, yes, yes, yes. Why all this necessary? Because of the Batsuim who said that the Omer is not reaped on Motzis Yom Tov. They would reap it on reap. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. We're done.
That's, all right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. I'm going to have to run.
Lovely day. I have my scooter. I was saying I have my scooter. I told you, and I
Yeah.
also have the chair that goes takes me upstairs. I have to put the other stairs in for the upstairs inside the house, and they all have Shabbat commands. So I have to remember which one, what to push and what to do. And it's a little confusing, but I'll get it eventually.
Okay. Good day.
Have a